probably not going to post this video. This is just maybe trying to put some of my thoughts on camera so I could see them clearly, more clearly, or just see them from a different view, and which will help with a little bit more clarity. But Jesus gives me way more clarity than my YouTube channel, and having conversations with him, he's helped me with a lot of understanding, and he's cleared up a lot of things for me. But I still love recording videos and just talking it out on camera and be able to watch it back. It's still another love and another passion, but I love talking to him. And I've been talking to him about understanding demons more. And see, the thing that I was struggling with, which he's helping me understand it more, but I was only seeing 3 demons, and I feel like there are only 3 demons that exist, but something that I've been struggling with, it's like understanding the 10 Commandments and sin. Because I'm pretty sure that they call it the 7 daily sins. There's only 7 sins, but there's 10 commandments. So I wonder, how do sins relate to the 10 commandments? Because they obviously relate, because part of the 10 commandments, do not steal. So stealing is a sin. But what sin is stealing part of? And I was looking it up. It says stealing is part of the sin of greed. And I didn't really give greed too much attention, because this is why. I've been seeing greed, the sin of greed, because I hear a lot of people talk about it sexually. I feel like one of the most common sins that people talk about. And the sin of greed, this is how I see it. Because it really goes down to, what I feel it goes down to 3 things. Which is the sin of sloth, the sin of gluttony, and the sin of lust. And the sin of greed is actually just a sin that comes from those 3 sins. And I see them as the original sins, because money is imaginary, it's not real, okay? It's created by man. And money is the root of all evil, and money does not buy happiness, okay? We know all this. But when people usually talk about greed, they talk about money, taking too much money for themselves. But money is not necessary for survival. It is not. It's just something that the government wants to get people to believe in so they can have more control. And that's really what it is. I mean, there's more, it goes deeper, and there's probably more manipulation or more explanation about explaining how money is the root of all evil. But how I see it is, money is not necessary for survival. It is not. Humans have been surviving way before money was invented, and we can still survive without money. Even if it seems impossible, it's almost more impossible to try to survive with money than it is to survive without money, because you could easily go off the grid, live off the land. Farm now might be harder because we're in a society where we're kind of like in a zoo, where the government has took away all of our survival skills and instincts, which is still inside of us. We just kind of have to reactivate it. But our ability to go into the woods and recognize if a berry is poisonous or healthy and ready to eat, the government almost took that from us. And that is ancestry knowledge that has been passed down for centuries and decades. And now, if you were to stick in America, one of my favorite books, or survival books, is The Hatchet, about a boy trying to go follow a plane to go see his dad, but gets trapped on an island. All he has is a hatchet, but he learns to use that to get wood, to get I forgot how he got rope, but he was surviving off of the island, just going off of bare basic survival skills. And he didn't think about money. No, he's like, how am I gonna find food? How am I gonna get shelter to protect myself from the dangerous creatures at nighttime? How am I going to get water? How do I create weapons to be able to defend myself? How do I collect berries and know if berries are poisonous or not? These are survival skills, survival knowledge. and survival instincts that we have to get back in touch with and tap into. And so what I'm trying to get at is money is not part of survival, just the government tricking us to make us think that it is. That's what money is. And so the sin of greed being related to the sin of money, if money doesn't exist, I don't see the sin of greed existing. And the sin of greed actually comes from the sin of gluttony, sloth, and lust. I'll explain. Because how I see the sin of greed, just taking money out of it, is taking more than what you need. So, for example, like I said, money's not part of survival, but what is part of survival is being able to do work and be productive and move and be able to go chase after, the pig or the chicken or whatever, or be able to hunt down a bird, go fishing, being able to farm, which is productivity, which is the opposite of laziness. Which laziness is part of the sin of sloth. So, the sin of sloth, how does it relate to the sin of greed of taking more than what you need? And it's like I said, I don't see the sin of greed as an actual sin, and I don't see money as a necessity of survival, and money is fake and imaginary and not real. Survival has been happening before money, and survival can happen without money. Money is, like I said, a trick from the government to make us think that we need it to survive, but we don't. But the sin of greed is, in simple terms, taking more than what you need. And so I see the three sins, the sin of sloth, the sin of gluttony, the sin of lust, as sins part of survival, okay? And if you are lazy, don't pick up your own slack, don't pick up your own weight, and you won't chase after the chicken, and you won't farm, you won't go after the materials and the resources to build a shelter, you won't try to build the weapons. If you choose to be lazy and you give in to the sin of sloth, that is hurting your survival. But it's also committing sin, which is evil. And some people, just with the lazy, just with the sin of sloth, now talk about the other sins, and relating it to the sin of greed, taking more than what you need. But some people with the sin of sloth, they don't want to go chase after the pig. And the story I like to think of is Tom Sawyer, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But they don't want to go chase after the pig or chicken. They don't want to collect wood and sticks and try to get some rope or whatever resources and materials they need to build a shelter. They don't want to go try to find berries and pick berries. They don't want to go fishing. They don't want to do any of that. They want to be lazy, put their feet up, and trick somebody else to get them to do the work for them. And this is part of taking more than what you need. So you're getting someone else to pick up your slack and to do the work that you are required to do for your survival. And you trick someone like Tom Sawyer. Now I'll explain the story of Tom Sawyer just real quick. Tom Sawyer is about a boy, which I don't know if he was hired to do this or he was told to do this for free, but he was painting a fence white. And it's very boring, very tedious, and hard work almost. And he does not want to do it, he wants to be lazy. And his friends keep coming up to him, hey, let's go play, let's go hang out. He's like, well, I've got to paint this fence, but man, I'm having a blast painting this fence. This is fun. Like, you guys are missing out. I don't know what you guys got planned, but I'm having a great old time just painting this fence. And he's like, what are you talking about, Tom? Hey, painting that fence ain't fun. He's like, yes, it is. And he tricks him and convinces him that painting the fence is fun. And he says, hey, why don't you give it a try? Start painting it. Like, just move the brush just like that. And dude, it's fun, man. Try it out. So they're like, okay. And they start believing, oh, this is actually fun. And they get tricked to do hard work because they think they're having fun. And Tom Sawyer's like, all right, you guys got it. Then he goes and puts his feet up and puts his hands behind his head and just kicks back and relax, okay? And he tricks his friends to do his hard work for him. Not picking up his slack, not picking up his weight, and giving in to the sin of sloth and being lazy. And so taking more than what you need. How does that relate? Okay, it's more like this. Tom was required to do some hard work, which you could say is part of his survival, okay? But he did not want to do it. He wanted to give in to the sin of sloth. So he tricked his friends to do it for free. So he gave them extra work that they weren't required to do, that they didn't have to do for their survival. And he tricked them to do it for him, for his survival, to make his survival easier, so he could be lazy. So less work for him. He's taking more relaxing and more chilling out more than he needs. Because what he needs to do is paint the fence and do hard work. He does not need to relax. And he could relax at the end of the day after he completes his hard work. But he skips it and tries to get it early. It takes too much of it. It takes more than what he needs. He does not need to be relaxing all day when he can relax at the end of the day when he has to, for the most of the day, paint the fence. So that's what he needs to do. So it takes more time to relax, more than what he needs, being way more lazy than he needs to be, and tricks other people to do his hard work. So he takes way more relaxing time than what he needs, taking more than what you need. And that is a example of the sin of greed, right? Because somebody who needs to do hard work and needs to do work to cover their survival, but wants to relax and chill out all the time, taking more relaxing time than they need, and tricks other people to do their hard work for their survival, to make their survival easier, that is the sin of sloth, but also the sin of greed, which plays off of the sin of sloth. And so he's not picking up his own way, and he's passing it on to someone else and tricking them to do it and take care of it. And so he's taking more relaxing time than he needs and not doing any of the work that he needs to do. So that would be another example of taking more than what you need. And the sin of gluttony would be, hey, let's give equal shares. Let's eat and all that stuff. Let's say we're in a tribe and we all get the animals and berries and all the vegetables and all that stuff. And we're about to have a feast at the end of the day. And somebody who's like tricks other people that says, hey, can I get some of your share? And they that we all got equal shares, and they got their plate, and they're like, oh, this ain't enough, I need more. Hey, let me get some of your green beans. Hey, can I get your chicken leg? And all that stuff. Or they might trick them or manipulate them or make them feel bad, or hey, I'm really hungry, I didn't eat yesterday, or whatever manipulation that they do. They might trick them, and they might take other people's share, their share of food, and eat more for themselves, more than what they need, because they just want to pleasure their tongue. And they give in to the sin of gluttony, which is how the sin of greed plays into the sin of gluttony, is taking more food than what you need, eating way more than what you need, having a second plate, third plate, fourth plate, and just taking more food away from the other people. And that is sin of gluttony, which is also the sin of greed playing on that. And so, same way with the sin of lust. For men who have multiple wives, which there's no need for it, God only wants us to have one wife, and He has a soulmate for everybody, and you can't have multiple soulmates. And for men who have multiple wives, now there's probably some women out there that have multiple husbands or something like that along those lines, but it's more common for men. Men having multiple wives, multiple girlfriends, that is the sin of lust and the sin of greed. Taking more women than what you need, having way more sex than what you need, and probably a sex addiction, giving into the sin of lust. But you are over pleasuring yourself and giving in too much and taking too much, because you only need one woman. There's no need to have two women to have sex with. I believe that is part of the sin of adultery and the sin of lust. And so you are still taking more than what you need. So by taking too much relaxing time than what you need, by taking too much food and taking other people's share more than what you need, and taking too much sex. You're trying to have multiple wives, multiple girlfriends, multiple friends with benefits, romantic, sexual lovers, and even porn addiction. Watching way too much porn, taking more than what you need, still part of that. Because I'm guilty of it. I was somebody that watched porn probably maybe 3 times a day, 4 times a day. That happened to me. But doing that, you don't need, a human being does not need to watch porn 4 times a day. That is taking more than what they need. They are pleasuring themselves with lust, taking too much pleasure for themselves, giving into lust too much. And that is giving into the sin of lust, but also the sin of greed. And so people who masturbate and watch porn way too much, which I could be guilty of. I watched porn last night, and I'm trying my best to overcome it, and Jesus has helped me by giving me the strength to be able to fight the battle, but also giving me an understanding of how I can overcome it. And I thank Him for that. But the sin of lust, by giving into that sin way too much, having multiple wives, watching porn way too much than what you need to, which you don't even need to watch porn. Like, literally, it's not a need. Like, I know people call it sexual needs, but God wants us to wait until marriage for sex. And that is not impossible. It is completely within our capabilities and completely possible within us to be disciplined, to have control over ourselves, to not give in to the sin of lust and have sex early or watch porn and be too impatient to wait for marriage. It is completely within our capabilities and completely possible for us to wait until marriage for sex. And that's what God wants us to do. It is completely within our power to be disciplined enough to not give in to the sin of lust and to be patient enough to wait until marriage. With the power of God and His help, we have the power within us to be disciplined enough and patient enough to wait until marriage for sex, which is what He wants us to do. And some people might think it's the hardest thing ever. How could you wait until marriage for sex? Sex is one of the best parts about life. No, it's not. One of the best parts about life, or the best part about life, is having a relationship with our Creator. And instead of lust and sexual urges are just a short-term pleasure. And having a relationship with our Creator is a long-term fulfillment. That's how I see the sin of greed. And so, but stealing, I started thinking about stealing again. So stealing, if stealing is a sin, okay. But, and the sin of greed, how does that play into it? I was thinking about books, okay? And when I've stolen a book before, I don't think it has anything to do with lazy. I think it might have something to do with laziness. Just 1 second. I wouldn't say stealing a book has really anything to do with the sin of gluttony or the sin of lust. Now, the sin of sloth, I can't. Because, okay, in our society, it takes money to buy a book. Now there's some people that steal for pleasure. They have the money to buy the book, but they just want to steal because it's fun. But for me, I stole a book because I didn't think this is when I was a kid. Definitely didn't have that much money as a kid. But I didn't know if my mom would have actually bought me that book. And I could have asked her, but I didn't. Or maybe I did ask her. And I even think my aunt had gifted me a Diary of a Wimpy Kid book because I asked. But that's something we gotta do more, is just asking. Instead of trying to take control in our own hands and do things our way, we could just ask. And doesn't hurt to ask. But yeah, so stealing a book. I feel like that is a play on the sin of greed, but I don't even see a sin of greed as a real sin, because money isn't real, but taking more than what you need. But the sin of laziness. Instead of me going out to do the work required to get the money to buy that book, I steal because I choose to be lazy and not do some work like mowing some grass or doing some chores to get some money to be able to buy that book. So, by me giving into the sin of sloth, choosing to be lazy and not do the work to get the money to buy the book, I break the commandment, do not steal, and steal a book because I choose to be too lazy to do the work to get the money to buy the book. So, that's how I see that relating, that's how I see stealing and a sin of greed relating to the sin of sloth. So, I don't see the sin of greed as an actual sin. There's other sins like the sin of pride, I think, and I just don't think those other sins are that important or that real, or that we need to focus on them too much. And the three sins I feel are the most important, I feel like impacts almost every human, is the sin of sloth, the sin of gluttony, and the sin of lust. And I feel like the other sins all come from those original three sins, and I see them as the only three sins.